Jacksonville. The child was born and couldn't sit still. 86 years later with no regret. You know that man can't sit still yet. The Great Depression couldn't get him down. He worked for his dad's store in town, collecting money in small amounts for poor whites and blacks in their furniture accounts. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. Stetson Kennedy wants us all to be free. As he'd collect, he'd talk to folks. He'd hear legends, tales, songs, and jokes. Now this fine treasure he'd record and write. He was colorblind, didn't see black and white. Writer's project for the WPA. With Zora Neale Hurston, he earned his pay. Crackers and blacks, they talked for hours. It was a barefooted history of this land of flowers.
The week that was on the 24th of February 2018, the last program of February, which incidentally is African History Month. We will have some programming here in the last days of February. It's a short month, incidentally, from WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network. We also have a production up of Numbers Man. It was done on Friday, our macroeconomics program that we do with Cranston Analytics. Nonetheless, we'll place a link to that program on iHeart. We'll start this with a teacher's strike in West Virginia, and we'll end it with Eric Greitens. Eric Greitens is the governor of the state of Missouri. He is a man that came in, an ex-Navy SEAL, to clean up corruption in Jefferson City, which is the capital of Missouri. He, by all accounts, is an opportunist. He was seen at the Democratic National Convention during the term of President Barack Obama. He decided evidently to be a Republican and a family values man. Now he's caught up in a scandal with an extramarital affair. You'll hear that, and we'll go to the Post-Dispatch in St. Louis, and we'll bring that to you. But firstly, out of West Virginia, the teachers' strike there. West Virginia is number 47, I believe, in or 48 in teachers' pay in the U.S. We get press releases from Governor Justice, and he talked about raising the teachers' salary and others from anywhere from 2 to 1%. Let's listen to a little bit of the news conference out of their capital in West Virginia.
Take action from the membership and how they want to proceed, and based on what kind of action has been taking place. So with that authorization, they have asked us to coordinate and acknowledge the action that needs to be taken, and so we have announcing today that come Monday.
So is this?
And we've been in constant discussion with members and people the last 2 days. I mean, we've heard our members loud and clear. We've heard educators across the state loud and clear. They're not ready.
So is this?
What will it take you to get back?
What will it take us to get back? Well, we need to start the discussions again with the House and Senate leadership and the governor. We need to go back to the table and start to work on solutions that can be satisfactory to the educators across the state and to resolve this.
Is this officially a strike, or is it still considered a walkout?
Well, I mean, the counties have closed their schools the last 2 days. But if you look up the 3 words of work stoppage, work action, or strike, this definition is the same. So we have defined it as work stoppage because the counties have closed. If someone else decides that even though those counties are closed, there's some different kind of action to be done, then that's up to them.
Do you get any feeling that there's going to be backlash to continuing it on Monday from any of the individual county school systems or anyone else in the state? Because you're right, they did cancel these 2 days, Thursday and Friday, but I haven't heard about what they're planning for Monday.
We would hope that they would understand the plight of educators across the nation. We would hope, across the state, and we would hope that they would heed their voices. Our leaders across the state will go back, and the educators around the room will go back and tell their superintendents there's not going to be enough people to man the schools on Monday. We suggest that you call school off, and I would hope that they would understand that and do the same thing.
Most of the reporters got to talk to Governor Justice this afternoon, and he said he probably won't call a special session. Do you think what you're wanting to accomplish can be done this session, or does there need to be a special session? Or
We have to see some kind of commitment to the real issues that we have all been talking about for the last several years, and especially in the last few days being down here. So we know that there's a process. We know there's an end date for the legislative session. Just like we know there's an end date for the school year sometimes. Clear to June 28th now, but the point is that we want to see a commitment from this legislature to address these issues. And what that commitment is will determine how we proceed. It's in their hands to make change.
I guess you're in negotiations with them, but your demands to us can seem a little vague. Is there an amount of money? Is there a particular commitment to PEIA? It looks like some of the bills that you had questions about appear to be dead, if not likely dead.
Well, they're not dead yet. I mean, they can revive them at any time. And we have been consistent in our message from day one that this is fourfold, that this is about PEIA and getting the task force together to really address the issues, to look at long-term funding and go to the table where we actually have a seat at the table to make these solutions. Not wait until November when the Finance Board comes out and says, here's the plan. What do you think? The second one is the salary. We've said consistently that the 11111 or the 2111, which suddenly got reduced to 211, was not enough. I mean, we have to address the issue of salaries for teachers and service personnel across the state. They can't continue to leave the state in droves because they can make more money anywhere else. And we have way too many vacancies in the classrooms and with service positions for it not to be a salary issue. Third, while those bills like the seniority bill doesn't appear to be moving, it's still out there. And it can be revived at any moment. And finally, the Paycheck Protection Bill has passed the Senate and is sitting in the House. It's on House Judiciary. That avenue has already gone in past crossover day, so that can be taken up the last week of the session. So it's just that we know that those things are the issues for educators across the state, and we want to ensure that those things are taken care of.
And look, where this is not a collective bargaining state, so we're not negotiating with an employer. We have 134 members who negotiate with each other on what they pass. We are here to let them know what the concerns of our members are and to listen to their people and have them actually do something that's going to get us out of 48th in the country in teaching positions and teaching teachers' salary bring up our service personnel salary, and make sure that we can fill these vacancies with an experienced, highly qualified educator in every single classroom in West Virginia, because this is about public education. This isn't about the teachers' unions. This is about public education. And the reason all of these people are here and that they stood up for themselves is for the students. They're standing up for their students. And we support them, and we will make sure that their voices are heard in whatever capacity it takes to have a true commitment here.
What percentage would it?
And we talk a lot about the teacher vacancies, but Joe can tell you about the vacancies for service professionals.
Yes, a lot of people doesn't realize this, but across the state of West Virginia this year alone, we lost almost 800 service personnel positions. We have counties that they don't have substitute bus operators. They can't even take a day off because they don't have substitute bus operators. So this thing is a lot bigger than all of us in this room, and we have to be very clear in stating that the members are speaking. We're just a vessel here for them. They can put whatever title they want on us. They can call us the bosses or whatever, but the membership is what's caused this.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
You only referred to Monday, but will this go on indefinitely?
Pardon me?
So you only referred to Monday as for the work stoppage, but will this go on indefinitely? How will you decide?
We will evaluate what progress we make on Monday and where we are in the negotiations and make the decision just like we did today.
Hey, what you've just heard is a news conference out of West Virginia. It's a joint news conference between the American Federation of Teachers and the West Virginia Education Association, the West Virginia SSAP. That's a service workers organization, a joint news conference. It was held on Friday, and they will be out on also on Monday. So this is basically what is going on here in the state of West Virginia. From the Washington Post, we got the original story, a work stoppage, and that is the news conference period. Dale Lee, West Virginia Education Association president, told them they had a representative there from the service workers. Lee said that 55 counties will feel the impact. In other words, it's on the county basis there in West Virginia. And Christine Campbell, she's president of the American Federation of Teachers, West Virginia, a major union. And you heard her also speak there. And not only educators, but bus drivers, cook, maintenance workers, etc. are there. People also stayed behind in the local committees for informational pickets, Campbell said. This is in Charleston, West Virginia there, and the data from the National Education Association, again, as they said in the news conference, ranks number 48 in teachers' salaries in 2016, which includes 50 states and District of Columbia. Only South Dakota, a small state, Mississippi, and Oklahoma set below West Virginia in those rankings. And not a place where you want to be there. Jerry Pippin, the late, great Jerry Pippin, our former broadcast partner, talked about Oklahoma's position at the bottom. The work stoppage came the same week that Big Jim Justice, who used to be a Democrat, switched to Republican, gave teachers and state troopers a 2% raise. Teachers expect to get a 1%, and they talked about this increase in 2020, 2021. The problem that they have in West Virginia is that teachers that initially teach in West Virginia are leaving as quickly as they can. In other words, probably 1 or 2 or 3 years of experience in West Virginia, and they move on to other states. West Virginia cannot keep people there, and that is it. Someone from the Department of Education, Keedy, said teachers in West Virginia went on strike in 1990, but the participants in the stoppage varied county to county and was not statewide. This is evidently a statewide, said some teachers in the strike took on second jobs to make ends meet, including weekend shifts at fast food restaurants. She mentioned one teacher who was dealing with a health issue but cannot afford her medication. So this is not only in West Virginia, but it's in various places that teachers have been assaulted, not only the murders down in Florida. We heard a guy today talking about he was a pro-ERA a person. He had some cronies around him there, probably an alt-right, perhaps even a white supremacist, was talking about so many seconds, etc. The problem here is when you talk about gun control, we have talked about this a number of times. It originated in California after the Black Panther Party, not the Black Panther movie, marched into the state capital in Sacramento with what is called long guns. Now, the AK, what is it? The AR, I'm sorry, 15 is classified as a long gun. In other words, a long gun is a rifle. And in most of the the western states, you could have long rifles and take them around, and you'll see in states like Texas in the back of pickup trucks. Of course, you wouldn't put an AR-15 in the back of your pickup truck. It's perfectly legal there in Texas, unless they've changed it on public places. You can have long guns there. A Black Panther Party type organization there in Houston had their long guns out at some of their demonstrations at one time in Texas. They may have changed the law, but the whole point here is that in Florida it was different with Mr. Cruz. Cruz was known. He was classified as what they call a vulnerable adult, and he was staying with some people that he knew evidently, and they had I don't usually like to get into this. It supposedly was a gun cabinet, and he had a spare key. I'm not certain about that, but nonetheless, he did take the gun to school that he had been excommunicated or he had been expelled from, and killed 17 people, wounded many more. The police officer on duty was standing outside, did not go in. He's been labeled by DJ Trump as a coward, and he was suspended and resigned from the police force. He'd been on there since the 80s. He was 54 years old. His house is now being guarded by the police. No doubt he will have to move out of the town. That is a fact. But this whole issue of guns and the NRA, that is the big problem there. And the Republican Party itself has been a bastion there. Trump was at the CPAC conservative conference talking about that. And this is a story. We ran this. We'll just briefly run it again. Florida Teachers Pension Fund is invested in guns. Here's how many shares it holds. This is from Bloomberg. The Florida Retirement System Pension Plan holds shares valued at $528,000 in American Outdoor Brands, formerly known as, they literally has changed their name, Smith & Wesson. American Outdoor manufactures the AR-15 rifle there, and they have 41,000 shares. Also found that the pension fund had invested in Ruga and a company, Vista Outdoors Incorporated, Orlean Corporation, which all make firearms. The Florida retirement system covers all state, local school districts and public universities. About 49% of the participants work for school districts. That is according to the spokesman for the State Board of Administration, Kowalski. As in many pension funds, the participants were passive investors, which mean they don't choose the holdings. While the fund is administered by the Florida State Board of Administrations, its investment goals are set by Florida lawmakers. The fund is currently barred by statute from investing in businesses associated with Iran and Sudan, and must evaluate investments in any company that it participates in the boycott, divest, and sanction movement against Israel. Oh, boy. The boycott, incidentally, while we're on the Israelis' situation, they are moving their capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, a religious capital for many of all three monolithic religions, i.e., Christianity, Judaism, and Catholicism. And Islam. Sorry about that. Anyway, that is a situation that's occurred. So, in other words, in the Mideast, any prospect of a peace plan of this year has been diminished, and that is the end of that situation there. Another note from Bloomberg, the California Public Employees Retirement System divested from Ruger, Stern Luger, and Smith & Wesson after Sandy Hook. So people are speaking with their money on these various things. You'll hear in about another character here, Missouri's Governor Eric Greitens. He's been indicted for felony invasion of privacy. He is the governor who swept into office in 2016 with a vow to clean up corruption, a corrupt state government. Was indicted, booked, taken down the hall, as one would say. It stems from a scandal that broke last month, in which Greitens was accused of threatening his lover with photos. An allegation that isn't mentioned in the indictment. Greitens has admitted having an extramarital affair, but denied the rest. A circuit judge there, Kim Gardner's office, announced the grand jury indictment. The St. Louis Circuit Attorney. Sorry about that one. The Post-Dispatch saw Greitens led down the hall in the courthouse, the Callahan Courthouse. Callahan, incidentally, used to be a Democratic governor that was killed in an airplane crash. And his son and then his wife later took that slot in the Senate. Officials later confirmed that Greitens had been taken into custody and booked in the St. Louis Justice Center, along with many followers of O.J. Simpson. A Republican declared his innocence in a written statement, alleged the indictment is a misguided political decision by a reckless liberal prosecutor. Greitner is a Democrat. Anyway, Greitens' legal team immediately filed a motion to dismiss on the grounds that any activity Greitens engaged in was consensual. In other words, they're not denying that he blindfolded the woman, bound her, and it was consensual. Now, Judge Rex Burlinson allowed Greitens to be released on what's normally called an OR. The spokesman for the National Governors Association said late Thursday that Greitens informed the organization he would not be attending the meeting. It appears Mr. Greitens' future in politics is clouded, and the Republicans are running away from him like a maiden from a smallpox epidemic. In recent weeks, it appeared that Greitens, this is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, had weathered the worst of the scandal, but the news of the indictment spread. Once an indictment is done, it's like anything else. It's out in the news. You can never erase even 80 or 90% of what has happened. A joint statement by top Republicans, including the Speaker of the House, Todd Richardson, said they will appoint a group of legislators to investigate the charge. We will carefully examine the facts and contained in the indictment and answer the questions as to whether or not the governor can lead our state. Now, this is a situation that if they find any evidence, old Grattan's will be finished, he'll resign. Garner in her statement announcing the indictment said the grand jury found probable cause to believe that Grattan's had violated a Missouri statute that makes it a felony to transmit non-consensual images showing a nudity in a manner that allows access to that image via a computer. As I have stated before, it is essential for residents of the city of St. Louis and of our state to be confident in their leaders. The Dispatch and other area medias reported that Grattan's, he's a first-term Republican elected in, had had an extramarital affair near the start of his campaign in 2015. The allegation was put forward by the husband of the lover, which it was his hairstylist, supposedly. However, Grattan's, in a written statement, indicated there now is an allegation that he did, in fact, transmit the image at the same point. The woman said later that the secretly recorded conversation that he later told her he erased it. Well, Mr. Grattan's has some problems, primarily at this point in time, a PR problem in the case. The case is on the Missouri law, what they call a Class E felony, punishable by up to 4 years in prison. He won't get 4 years in prison, but the whole idea, if this charge, as they say in the vernacular, sticks, and he actually goes to trial, his attorney, Dow Jr., Edward L. Dow Jr., said in 40 years of, and the 40 years has been around the public and private process, I've never seen anything like this. The charges against my client are baseless and unfounded. My client is absolutely innocent. Well, he can't be absolutely innocent because he's admitted to the affair and the event. The only issue here is if he had actually photographed this woman and transmitted it. And if the forensic people, I would assume, that charging him with this, they probably had subpoenaed his whatever device he was using, and they probably have some supporting evidence that this happened. The Dow, the motion to dismiss doesn't specifically deny the allegations that Grattan's took the photo. Instead, it claims that the lawyer used in the indictment was meant to apply to peeping toms and not to situations between two people engaged in consensual sex activity. Well, that in itself is enough to put Mr. Grattan's in the hot seat there. The allegations, a woman had been with Grattan's hairstylist. Her ex-husband confronted her about the affair. It was in progress in 2015 when he was getting his campaign to in full swing. The husband later provided the audio tape to news services that killed him there. The Post-Dispatch, of course, did not name the woman, and in the part that comes after us, you will hear some of it from Peter Joy, a professor at Washington University, of School of Law, that is in St. Louis, said he expects the indictment of Grattan's means either the woman agreed to cooperate with the prosecutor probe, or that investigators have obtained other evidence of a crime. I still think at the end of the day, without her, it's still going to be almost impossible to prove. Joy said they must have something more than an audio tape that an ex-husband had, because although grand juries will often follow the clue of the prosecutor presenting the case, I think the grand jury would wanted some type of proof of transmission of the photograph. Joy said he doesn't think that politics is motivating Grattan's decision to Garner's decision. That is the prosecutor to seek an indictment against the governor, and that it's not uncommon for prosecutors to indict those on either side of the political spectrum. Without probable cause, Joy said a prosecutor should not even bring a case to a grand jury. And probable cause has a lot of elasticity in it. They are supposed to put politics aside. That's only in the so-called perfect world, which there is not. In almost every instance, that's what they do. I don't agree with Mr. Joy on that. Michael Worf, former Missouri Supreme Court Chief Justice and Dean of the St. Louis University's Law School, said that the speed at which Gardner's office obtained an indictment is not necessarily surprising, because the statute of limitation for invasion of privacy expires on the 21st of March, and 3 years after the date of the alleged crime. He also said elements needed to prove invasion of privacy are not terribly complex, in that a prosecutor needs evidence that Grattans took compromising pictures of a woman and shared them. And they probably do have some of that. It's a simple event, and you're bumping up against the statute of limitations. This is Wolf said, and if you don't make a decision in the next month, you don't have a case. Now it's up to Missouri House to decide whether the indictment should trigger an impeachment proceeding. If impeachment follows, a special commission elected by the Senate would try Mr. Grattans. Before that would happen, Mr. Grattans would leave. And anyway, let me finish this story up here. Spent a lot of time on it. But the wife, Sheila Grattans, spoke at Washington University about, North Korean refugees. This is silly. Grattans is apparently the first sitting governor of Missouri to be indicted. No governor that I can determine has been criminally charged. That's Ken Wynn, a former longtime Missouri state activist. And so, in other words, there is a lot of going on here and riding on Eric Grattans. Missouri is a state that DJ Trump carried, and a state that is involved or will be involved in the play, Claremont Castle, of course, out of St. Louis in the 2018 election. What will be the fallout from the poster boy opportunists there? Well, there will be some fallout. There is always some fallout. People are distrusting of political parties in the first place. Let me move on here. We still have Uncle Carl to come up here. Corporate partners cut the cord with NRA. We reported this, a number of them, of those out there. Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, founded after 20 first graders were shot and killed in a Connecticut school, that sent a letter to Apple Incorporated, AT&T, Amazon, Alphabet, Google, and Rook Incorporated, asking them to drop NRA TV from their platforms. We're disgusted by NRA TV since its beginning. That is from Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand Action, told Reuters. Now, AT&T said it does not carry NRA TV. None of the other companies will immediately respond. They will be responding, no doubt about that, because people will be challenging them. The U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment to protect the rights of Americans to bear arms. The NRA has long used campaign donations and effective lobbying to command political influence. Argues that the strict gun controls would erode human individual rights, which is a lie. There is no right with the AR-15 assault rifle. Now, the Second Amendment itself was set in motion to promulgate slavery within the country. One of the reasons there. But what happens with the NRA as it's divorced from many of its groups, and the Googles of the world are very, very fragile. and so is Amazon. As far as that's concerned, if just a few 100,000 people started to boycott them, that would not be very good for them. The corporate defections, nearly 24 companies nationwide have offered incentives to NRA members. That's according to Think Progressive, as a news site owned by the Center for American Progress Action Fund. I didn't know that, but they are. And the list of defectors expanded to include a somatic. I mean, we talked about them, the antivirus people, with their LifeLock identity theft products. Home security company Simple Safe. Hertz Corporation also terminated a discount program. I guess since OJ is not running through the airport anymore. The Chubb Group, MetLife, another, also said it had ended its auto and home incentive program for NRA members. David Hogue, one of the student survivors last week who launched the Never Again anti-gun violence movement, said the students would target any company with ties to the National Rifle Association. Half-dozen companies marketing ties include FedEx Corporation, Hertz, which offered discounts that did not respond to requests. But no doubt the heat will be on them as it moves along. Meanwhile, online campaigns using the Twitter hashtag Stop NRA Amazon picked up steam, putting pressure on the Amazon CEO Bezos to drop the channel. Many of those tweets are in the entertainment industry. How the NRA likes to point fingers at what kids watch on TV while they spew vile rhetoric on the NRA TV streaming from Amazon. That is from a screenwriter, Randy Seega. Anyway, it goes on, and as it heats up, similarly, the National Football Association announced a tough policy on handling domestic violence accusations against players when marketing partners apply for pressure. Here, same thing they cite in this article. This is from Reuters, incidentally. Bill O'Reilly and his situation there. Bill O'Reilly had to go. So it's always out there. NRA TV describes itself as America's most patriotic team on a mission to take back the truth. Oh boy. The channel's featuring a program that leans heavily on speeches by Wayne LaPierre, the NRA's poster boy. So this is part of it here. We've been through most things here. We'll get a little international news, and then we'll go to Uncle Carl, and we'll do the sports. The Central Committee is the largest elite. This is in China, and is made up of 204 members. The ruling Chinese Communist Party, a 3-day meeting. This is from Reuters. They'll talk about reform there. This is from the Xinhua news agency. Said the party's Central Committee will hold a preliminary session. That would be from the 26th to the 28th of February. And they will talk about various kinds of reforms. In this dispatch from Reuters, the economy of China grew by 6.9% in 2017, the first annual acceleration in economic growth since 2010. There will be a third preliminary session of the party since the Congress ended in October. A slew of new senior party posts announced. These preliminary sessions here, the Overseas People's Daily said in a WeChat account that since 1978, 3 preliminaries have traditionally been about deepening reforms, and some should pay close attention to it. It's 40 years since the Cultural Revolution in China. A Harvard-trained economist whose trusted confidant of President Xi has emerged as the front runner to be the next governor of the Central Bank of China, the People's Bank of China. This is Lu Ha, He. So thus they will be talking about these reforms deeply in the system to boost consumption and efficiency. For supply side structural reforms, deepen reforms in key areas, and efficient investments. Also said the government needs to maintain continuality and sustainability of its economic policy. It's been talked about before. On to Uncle Carl. He's writing in the Wall Street Journal on the 22nd of February. Trump wastes another weekend. Well, you can add that he's wasted another one at CPAC. President Trump has shown he has had a finger on the national pulse, but he often fails to read it correctly and missing obvious opportunities to advance his case. Take Friday's decision by the Department of Justice to indict 13 Russians and 3 companies interfering in the 2014-2016 elections. The indictment is compelled reading. Evidence is damning, and the Deputy Attorney General there, Rod Rothstein, explained televised explanation riveting. The next day, the president tweeted that the indictments didn't show a conspiracy between his campaign and the Russians, and the Russians spent more money after the election than before, and that they began intervening long before he entered the race. All are true and useful points, but Trump offered them with an unnecessary defensive tone. In doing so, he missed an opportunity for a permanent pivotal on the Russian mess. Trump should have talked about firm action he's taken to stop foreign meddling in American elections. He could have vowed that any foreign nation that intervenes in our elections will be discovered and that its methods exposed and face forceful retaliation. Though the Russians named in the recent indictments are unlikely to be extradited and face trial, Trump could have warned that they'll never to leave Russia. Trump could have pledged that his administration will do whatever is necessary to stop meddling in the 2018 election. It's always on the way. He would assure state and local governments have cyber tools to protect the election. He will make certain America has the cyber weapons and defenses to respond to foreign adversaries' attempts to subvert our democracy, and I would add so-called democracy, Uncle Carl. This would have given the administration a firmer footing on the Russian issue. The question of Putin's interference in the election would have become much less about Trump and much more about defending the country against serious threats. But instead, the president amplified the media noise. His tweets claim they are laughing their asses off in Moscow because of all the committee hearings, investigations, party hate. Moscow may well be laughing, but not the reason that Trump claims. He falsely blamed Parkland, Florida's mass shooting on the FBI, spending too much time trying to prove Russian collusion. And he asserted that he never claimed Russia didn't meddle in the election, only that China or a 400-pound gorilla sitting in the bed might have been the culprits. It's time for Trump to put the computer nerds to sleep and say without qualification that Russia attempted to undermine the American democracy, the rotund computer. Anyway, furthermore, Trump raised the bar by himself by tweeting that President Barack Obama did nothing to prevent Russian meddling before the election. Obama's sharp words for Putin and the ousting of 35 Russian spies were indeed inadequate response, but now Trump must show that he is doing everything possible to stop Russia's continual efforts. He could start by condemning Russian reported use of cyber bots to influence tension after the Florida shooting. There's been we're going to do a program on the bots. There's been increased attention to bots, and Twitter handling of bots, and Facebook. A lot of conservative bots have bit the dust. Bots are all around. They're out there. They started when the early days of Twitter. People would say 25, 30 followers would buy followers from the bots. And the bots, you would all of a sudden have going from less than 100 followers up to thousands of followers that were literally sold to you. You don't see as much of that, but they're still around. People are selling, quote-unquote, followers. So in other words, you could have 4,500, 4,000 followers. And what happens here, especially in the early days, if you had several thousand followers, other people would automatically follow you. And your followership would increase, and you can say, well, I have 4,500 or 5,000 followers on Facebook, and you would be happy. We'll start to do the sports now. We're running a little late, but it'll work out all right. It usually does. And we'll have the Monday morning quarterback, and on Sunday special programming for African History Week. We'll have those. And on the Monday morning quarterback, we'll also talk about the oh boy, more coming here about the Arizona basketball coach, Sean Miller, and sports agent Kristen Dawkins, in which Miller discussed a payment to ensure star freshman DeAndre signed with the Wildcats. This is Anton, I suppose how you pronounce his name. Anyway, this used to be done pretty commonly, not as much these days as in the past. Incidentally, spring training is going on, and we'll look at it. We'll look at college basketball here. And, of course, we'll check in with the NHL, otherwise known as the National Hockey League, as soon as we can get them in here. Let's see. In the NBA, there were two games last night. The Celtics were at the Pistons in the Motor City. Celtics won 10-98. The Hawks were at the Pacers. Pacers won 16-93. The Hornets were in Washington. Hornets won 22-105 for the Wizards. And in overtime, the Bucks were at the Raptors in Toronto. Bucks 122-119. The T-Wolves were in Houston. The Rockets 120-101. The Cavaliers were at the Grizzlies. Cavaliers 112-98. And in overtime, the Heat and Pelicans in the Big Easy, a 1-point game there. Pelicans 124-123 for the Heat. The Spurs and Nuggets out in Denver. The Nuggets 122-119 for the Spurs. The Clippers and the Suns in Phoenix. Clippers 128-117. The Trailblazers and Jazz. Trailblazers 100-81 there. And finally, the Mavericks and Lakers in Los Angeles. Lakers 124-101. And let's get back to college. Here we had Ohio State in the second overtime here, and Indiana. Ohio State ranked number 16, 80-79. And finally, Dayton and Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, 81, Rhode Island 81, Dayton 56. We finally got that one in. And we'll go to the National Hockey League and get the scores there. Let me check out Major League Baseball here. We have some scores here. Finally, from Friday, the Rays and Orioles, 6-3 Rays over Orioles of Tampa Bay. Twins and Red Sox, 4-3. Tigers and Yankees, 3-1 over the Tigers. And Nationals and Astros, 3-2, the champions here. And make sure we got everybody. Okay. The Cardinals and Marlins. Marlins 6-4 in that contest. The Pirates and Rays. Here, Rays 6-3 in that contest. And the Phillies and Blue Jays. Blue Jays 2-1. Atlanta and the Mets. Mets 6-2. The Reds and Cleveland. Reds 6-4 there. The Cubbies and Brewers. Brewers pulled that one out 2-1. The Brewers had 10 hits, 2 errors, and the Cubbies 5 hits and 1 error. The Angels and Athletics. Athletics 9-8 over the Angels. The White Sox and LA Dodgers 13-5 Dodgers, and they had 14 hits. The Dodgers did, and 2 errors, and the White Sox 6 hits and 1 error. The Brewers and Giants. Brewers win that 6-5. The Mariners and Padres. Mariners 3-2 in that contest, and finally in 10. Very unusual to have a 10-inning game. The D-backs and Rockets. Wish we would have tuned into that. 7-6 D-backs over the Rockets. And this is, remember, spring training here on the 23rd of February. Major League Baseball scores. Can't wait till later today to see if we can tune in some of those. Anyway, National Hockey League, the Wild and Rangers. Wild 4-1. The Penguins and Hurricanes. Penguins 6-1. The Jets and Blues in St. Louis. Jets 4-0. They were shut out. The Sharks and Blackhawks in Chicago. Blackhawks 3-1. Judy would be happy about that. And finally, the Canucks and Golden Knights of Las Vegas. The Vancouver Canucks. The Golden Knights came out on top, 6-3. This will do it for sports. We'll see you on the Monday morning quarterback on many of these same channels. We'll also have special programming. We'll look at the movie The Black Panther that will come out, and we will continue to have more programming for African History Month, which is a short month in February. And we have a Numbers Man report. You can check that out on the Numbers Man channel. And also we'll have an open source report coming this weekend. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you on Monday morning here on the Boston Red Network and the Boston Red part of it, the political part. Good day.
Admitted that he cheated on his wife, but he's denying that he tried to blackmail his mistress. Republican Eric Greitens says that the affair happened before his election.
But the woman's ex-husband tells our St. Louis affiliate KMOV that the governor threatened to reveal her identity. Greitens' lawyer says that claim is false. Jerika Duncan has more.
Our affiliate KMOV says the unnamed woman involved in the affair was the governor's hairdresser and that her now ex-husband was the one who exposed the sexual encounter and alleged blackmail, which included nude photographs.
Eric Greitens.
Hours after his State of the State address Wednesday night, Missouri first-term Republican governor and former Navy SEAL Eric Greitens admitted he was unfaithful to his wife. Recordings obtained by our St. Louis affiliate KMOV, which CBS News has not independently verified, appear to show the unnamed woman detailing her consensual sexual encounter with the governor to her then-husband only days after it happened.
He said, "I'll make you feel better. I'll make you feel good. Come downstairs. I want to show you how to do a proper pull-up." And I knew that he was being sexual, and I still let him. And he used some sort of tape, I don't know what it was, and taped my hands to these rings, and then put a blindfold on me. And he stepped back, and I saw a flash through the blindfold. He said, "You're never going to mention my name, otherwise these pictures will be everywhere."
I am a very proud husband and father.
The governor's affair was exposed by the now ex-husband of the woman involved. KMOV chose to protect his identity.
I think it's as bad as it gets when somebody takes advantage of somebody.
Our First Lady and my wife, Sheena Greitens.
Shortly after the report aired, Governor Greitens and his wife Sheena released a joint statement saying, "Before Eric was elected governor, there was a time when he was unfaithful in our marriage. Eric took responsibility." But despite the governor's admission, his attorney says the blackmail accusation is a lie, saying the outrageous claims of improper conduct regarding these almost 3-year-ago events are false. Governor Greitens says his wife has forgiven him and they've emerged stronger. Meanwhile, at least one member of the Missouri State Senate is already calling for Greitens' resignation. Anne-Marie and Vlad?
Jerika Duncan, thank you.
Investigative journalist Lauren Traeger helped break this story, and she joins us now from our St. Louis, Missouri affiliate, KMOV. Lauren, great reporting. You've been following this story for months. Why do you think the governor decided to make this admission now?
I think it was becoming pretty clear that this story was going to be coming out. I know that we had been working on it for some time. There was certainly a lot of discussion from what I was hearing amongst political circles about this. Certainly the ex-husband who's featured in that story there mentioned that he felt that the story was going to come out pretty imminently, and that's why he decided he wanted to get in front of it. He wanted to protect his family, and he wanted to sort of tell his aspects of this and get the story out in front of it because he felt that it was coming. So the timing of it certainly was just something that we felt was ramping up and getting closer, and we reached out to the governor, and late last night we did get that confirmation of that extramarital affair from the governor.
What about reaction from the governor's constituents, the people of the state of Missouri? Is there any fallout at all?
Certainly the reaction to this story has been huge. On social media, we've heard from so many of our viewers in the St. Louis area, a lot of people from across the state of Missouri and, frankly, around the country as well. A lot of people expressing some shock about these allegations, a lot of interest about this. In terms of any fallout, I think that's still going to remain to be seen at this time. I know that the Senate Republicans, the majority leaders in the Senate for Missouri, did just put out a statement saying that they found that these allegations were shocking and concerning, and they're hoping for some truth from the governor as this continues to move forward. Of course, a lot could continue to break on this. We are still reaching out to many of the parties here to see what the next steps might be and see what, if any, fallout will come from this.
So do you expect at all, Lauren, that the governor will come before you or anybody to talk about this, to do an interview, or to even make a public statement in front of cameras?
You know, we've certainly asked about that. At this time, there's no immediate plans that I'm aware of for that. The legislature is in session right now, but we are expecting some bad weather here in the state of Missouri, so it seems like they're going to maybe be adjourning early for that. So in terms of getting him on camera, that's certainly something we'll continue to work towards. I think we'd like to see if he has more to say about this. Again, he is denying those allegations of potential blackmail, if someone wants to call it that, but about these compromising pictures, he's denying that aspect of it. But we certainly would like to hear more about it. And we felt once the extramarital affair was confirmed by him that the public had a right to know about these additional allegations as well.
Indeed they do. Lauren Traeger with some incredible reporting. Thank you so much for joining us.